Hello, I'm James.
Hi, I'm Jimmy.
Welcome to A Job Done Well.
A podcast about the world of work and how to improve the daily grind.
Afternoon, how you doing? What are we talking about this week then?
Well, this week we are doing something slightly different. We are starting a series of podcasts that we're going to be doing, looking at customers and the customer experience that we deliver in our organisations.
And trying to understand why and wherefore, presumably.
Exactly.
Should be very interesting. Well, I would say that, wouldn't I? Right then, what else can you tell me?
Well, this week, James, I was made redundant this week.
Were you? What,
yes, again? And funny enough, we are doing an episode in a few weeks on redundancy. But no, this was by my children. They went to London yesterday, the city of my birth, the place where I spent years going backwards and forwards to.
And you know it like the back of your hand.
Exactly. They didn't talk to me about the fact they were going there.
Yeah.
They didn't ask my advice on how to get there, the quickest, cheapest, easiest routes. They didn't ask me on where they should go shopping, where they should eat, nothing. They were not interested in me
Your
at
opinion
all.
was irrelevant.
Exactly. So I'm redundant from giving them guidance.
Well, yeah. And how do you feel about that?
We'll talk about that in a few episodes' time.
There you go.
How about you? What have you been up to?
Well, I declared satisfaction on the old garden. The builder's gone.
All done?
No. Mrs. Lawther's been out and bought God knows how many plants. So after this, I'm going back and I am planting. That's my job. I've got my nice little trowel and my little kneeler things, and that's me. I'm away.
You've got a kneeler?
Yeah, a middle-aged kneeler, mate.
Jesus, you are such an old fogey. A kneeler.
I need one. And these I've got.
So this series of podcasts we're going to be inviting guests along to explore this subject of customer experience in the UK. So did you know, James, that we have changed from being a manufacturing economy to a service economy?
Okay.
So 81% of the UK's economic output comes from service industries, and 83% of us are employed in the service industry. So it is vitally important to the UK economy.
Yep.
And so what we are going to be doing is we're going to get guests on to talk about a few questions that we'll go through in a second and give some insights on how their organisations and their experience and their leaders think about service, how it's delivered and how you can improve it. So the questions are, and we, as a kick-off, we are going to answer those questions today. We're going to give our opinions. And then we're going to have a range of people coming in occasionally to answer them.
And see what they think. So go on then, what are the 4 questions?
Right, the 4 questions we'll be talking to people about are, so what do you think the state of customer experience is in the UK? Bearing in mind it's such an important part of the economy, how are we doing? Then the second one is, why do you think that? So what's your evidence for saying that? And how do you think we've ended up in the position that you're saying we are? Who does this well?
Yeah.
And how would you improve customer experience?
So
they're the 4 questions. Right, so let's start with the first one. What do you think the state of customer experience is in the UK? 80% of us work in it. How are we doing?
I think that, on the whole, it's a bit mixed, but it's pretty much the same as it has been. And let me explain why I think that. So and I'm going back a bit, right? I'm going back a long way. In the 1970s, I remember vividly going to the bank with my dad.
Yes.
Yeah. And it was a big thing. If we went away for the weekend, my dad had to get to the bank before 12 o'clock on a Saturday.
Yeah.
Because after that, the bloody bank closed. Yeah. And if the bank closed, we wouldn't have any cash, and that would be the weekend up in smoke. Yeah. And this was a routine that we had to do. And I mean, that's pretty poor, isn't it? With the customer services, you can't get your money. And you start to think about that, and you think, on the one hand, well, the technology is amazing, right? You go through, first of all, you had the whole hole in the walls, the cash points.
Yeah.
Then you moved into the chip and pin, so you didn't need the cash at all.
Yeah.
And now you've got internet banking, and you can do it all over your phone. And the positive is, well, my bank is now it's a wine bar. It is a wine bar.
True.
Quite literally, it's a wine
That's
bar.
true.
So on the one hand, the technology, I think, has moved us on leaps and bounds, and the things which were just painful, you don't have to do anymore. Yeah, same, you can go to the post office or whatever it might be. A lot of that stuff has gone from the world.
It's improved then.
Well, if you take that as your measure,
Yeah.
yes. But on the other hand, I do remember when I go into the bank, and you used to have to stand and wait, didn't you?
Yeah.
Yeah. And now what you do is you phone them and you sit and wait.
Your call is important to
Yeah,
us.
absolutely. So on the one hand, things have got much, much better, but on the other hand, they haven't got better at all. And then you then add on to that the fact that actually the service industry is growing massively.
Yeah.
So like I said, when I was a kid, it was the bank and the post office. Well, now I've got my internet, I've got my broadband, I've got my mobile phone, I've got online delivery, whatever it might be. But now I have to deal with a whole plethora of suppliers, most of whom, frankly, although they're giving me a product that I couldn't have when I was a kid, the quality of the service that they deliver is just a bit woeful. They tie themselves up in knots and they really aren't thinking about what they're doing. So let me give you a case in point, because I'm banging on a bit. So I think I mentioned it in one of our episodes, but I tried a new 3 dongle.
Yep.
Right, this is the new 5G Wi-Fi thing. They sent it to me. It sort of worked, but it didn't work, so I returned it. Yeah. And then to return it, if it had been Amazon, I'd have just clicked the button and I'd have returned it. They'd have printed me a label. No. I had to call an Indian call centre. And then, obviously, they don't want me to return it, so then I had to pass through to a logistics company who do the returns for them. And they said they'd send me a label. 3 working days. 3 working days to send a label over the internet, this is, right? And then, of course, nothing happened. But I need to return this dongle. So then I phoned them again and I went to the call centre and then I went to the logistics. They're 3 working days. I got the label.
Well done.
Thank you. Right, so then I printed the label off and I posted it. Now, the thing was, I have to say, we'll come to this later, return via DPD, I think are excellent.
They are, yes.
Yeah, DPD picked it up. They sent me a nice little email saying, we've dropped off your dongle. A week later, I get an email from this telephony supplier saying they're going to bill me because I haven't returned my dongle. I'm thinking, hang on, I've got an email telling me you've got me dongle. So then, of course, what do? I phone the Indian call centre and then I phone the logistics firm and then and then they need to know what the return number is, the ticket number that I got from DPD. Anyway, my point being, I'll go on this for hours, but the quality of service is just dreadful because it wasn't well thought through. It's just disjointed. And so, like I say, on the one hand, I think things have got an awful lot better, but on the other hand, I don't think we're good at it. We don't manage service well.
I think there's a couple of interesting points there, James. The changes over time, are you talking about the banking changes?
Yeah.
And I can remember when we were young and you went into the branch and then they started making you use the telephone. I couldn't use the telephone. I was like, hated it.
Yeah.
And then you got used to it. I did everything over the phone.
Yeah.
I couldn't imagine going into a branch. And then they brought in apps and online. And I was like, I can't do this online.
Yeah.
I do it on the phone. Then you get used to the online. And I can't ring them up now. I don't want to speak to them. I don't want to go in a branch. So it's interesting how your behaviour changes over time. I think we'll come back to that. But also, let's say the plethora of service providers that you then now interact with. Like say, it used to be like the bank, post office, a few shops. But now the retail experience you have is constant. Health, wellness, logistics, suppliers, financial services, TV, media. These are all service industries.
Yeah, and it is a little bit like the little girl with the little curl. When she's good, she's very, very good. But when it's bad, it's just horrid.
So I have a slightly different view from you.
Then.
I don't think back as far as you. And
that's because I'm a deep thinker, mate.
And which is surprising because, well, you are definitely a deeper thinker than me, but we're the same age, despite the people think I'm 10 years younger than you.
Yeah.
But anyhow, I think more recently, I think service in the UK is getting worse, and I think it's getting significantly worse. And my evidence for that is twofold. If you look at, and I know this is a generalisation, right? So, but if you look at the Institute of Customer Service, they do surveys and they look across all service industries, and their trend has been downwards in the last 2 years of overall satisfaction.
Yeah.
And it is the lowest since 2015. The Observer did a piece of analysis last year, and they worked out that the UK is losing £11.4 billion a month in fixing problems with service companies, fixing stuff. Rather than get it right first time, we're fixing stuff. And thirdly, the FOS complaints. So this is the Financial Ombudsman,
Yeah.
and they deal with complaints from people about their financial services firms. Their complaints last period were up 20%, and they uphold a third of those in the customer's favour. So that would tell me complaints are going up and
20% more
organisations are wrong. So I think there's a macro picture that we've talked about, but I think my experience is quite schizophrenic. So I think that large organisations that I deal with, and this is very subjective, this is my experience, dealing with companies like Virgin Media, Zurich, Barclays, I've had complaints about all three of those, and I deal with many, many more, but all of those are difficult to deal with. I think they're not trustworthy, their treatment's poor. When they want to put things right, when they eventually accept something's wrong, they do, but I'd rather they got it right first time. So I think the big organisations are useless at customer service in general. However, I think small organisations deliver in general a fantastic service. If I think about local shops, local businesses, trades, I think they really value their customers. They know the importance of their customers. They take a pride in what they're doing. They try and understand and deliver what their customers. So my take on customer experience in the UK is downwards, but it's a game of two halves. Big organisations on the down, small, still doing a great job.
Yeah, but I think therein lies the point. Coffee shops. If you go into one of the big multiple coffee shops, it's distinctly average. Whereas if you go into your local coffee shop, invariably the service is a lot better. Right, and the reason why the service is a lot better is if the service isn't good, they go out of business pretty bloody quickly.
This is a bit that always puzzles me, and I suppose it's a bit of just scale, isn't it? Why don't big organisations understand that? I mean, like you say, your small coffee shop knows that, but on average, it's 5 times more expensive to recruit a new customer than it is to retain an existing. Your profit is greater, and there's a correlation between satisfaction and profit.
Yeah, so I know I have a theory.
And so is revenue. So you take more money in, you make more profit. Why don't big organisations get that?
So I have a theory, and you can like this. It's a bit like running a bath.
Running a bath?
Yeah. So if you think about it, when you've got a business with customers, it's a bit like a bath full of water. Yeah. Right? On the one hand, you've got the taps on, bringing new customers in.
Yeah.
And on the other hand, you've got the plug out, new customers going out. Yeah. Mm-hmm. If you've got a small business with not many customers, actually what's going out the plug hole makes a big, big difference. You notice it.
It's more noticeable, yeah.
If you've got a big business with, companies we've worked with, millions of customers, then actually what happens is the organisation starts to worry about the water in the bath, the customers they've got, and they don't worry or see how much water is going out the plug hole. Yeah, so you start to manage the bath rather than managing the plug hole.
That's a good analogy.
Right, and if you're managing the bath rather than the plug hole, then you're into how can I get as much money out of this bath full of water as possible, rather than taking a long-term view and thinking, oh my lord, let's put the plug in.
And I think the interesting thing in parallel to that, James, is if you're worrying about the size of the bath, and a lot of companies see the size of the bath as just the financial performance, it's just the numbers,
of customers they've got.
I think that in the last couple of years, organisations have got much more focused on their cost, and they're forgetting about the fundamental principles around satisfying customers, about good service costs less, the acquisition numbers I was throwing around, all that sort of stuff's gone out the window because they're just focusing on the downward pressure on cost.
Yeah, but it's how can I make as much money as possible out of the customers that I have got.
Yeah. But again, customers who are satisfied stay longer and spend more.
Yeah, but if you are worried about it from a short-term perspective, then really it's very easy to not worry about your customer service because, particularly for business-to-consumer organisations, the consumer doesn't have much power in this. The only thing they can do is leave, and actually switching costs are a bit of a pain, so probably a lot of them will stick around for a while. So the customer has no power. So actually, you make them wait on a call centre, or you don't do what you say you're going to do. It's very easy to save money by salami slicing away the service that's offered.
to sum up where we are so far, you think service is much the same. I think service has got worse. We're both agreed that it's because they're managing the bath water, so the financials more than anything. I think another thing, though, which I think links to managing the bath water, back to that transition we were talking about going through banking, where you went from branch to phone to online. That happened over a lot of years. And I think it was a little bit uncomfortable for me at times, but I really did it at a certain pace and I got used to it and I learned it and I adapted my behaviours and I reaped the benefits. I think today, the chase for technology in a lot of organisations are going through chatbots, AI, robotics, all these sorts of technologies that definitely can add value and have a place, but it's just throw everything at it. It's a solution for all sorts of things and design it from a cost perspective rather than a customer perspective.
Yeah, but we were talking jargon the other day, weren't we? And one of the phrases I like was jump the shark.
Yeah.
I'm taking new bit of jargon here, jump the customer. So what do I mean by that? So if you think about it, right, you provide a service, stage 1, to a customer, stage 2, and the customer gives you some money, stage 3.
Yeah.
The problem is that a lot of organisations are very short-term focused, and what they do is they jump the customer. They're only worried about the money.
Yeah.
And if you start to focus on the money and you've got a load of short-term targets to hit, then it's very easy to not worry about the customer at all and just start to focus on the financials. Yeah. There was a McKinsey survey that you showed me, and I can't remember the stats.
The one about volumes. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's scary. You know, they what they were saying is that basically call volumes had increased over recent years.
Yeah.
And organisations were not worried about the particular increases in call volumes, which is scary in itself. But 57% of people in service industries, running service organisations, believe that call volumes would go up by more than 20% in the next couple of years.
Right, so you've got...
That's going through the roof.
Yeah, so you've got volumes going up,
yeah,
right, which suggests you're not managing your system terribly well because people don't want to be calling, yeah. And then the other thing was the number of people, or the percentage of people who were worrying about mitigating volumes was, 20% or something like that?
Yeah.
So volumes are going up. People aren't worried about trying to mitigate. What are they worried about? They're worried about revenues. And then the other thing they were worried about was, I shouldn't laugh, but AI. Yeah. So everybody's getting hot and frothy about AI to try and service all these calls, which they shouldn't be getting in the first place because they screwed something up.
Yeah. And actually, things like AI are fantastic if you use them the right way to help your customers. But at the moment, it's being used to help cut costs, and it's not necessarily solving customer problems, which is why volumes of contacts are going up, because you're not satisfying that demand.
Right, so I think just using it to address the symptom, not the cause.
And the best delivery of digital technology improvements, I believe, are the ones that are designed with the customer in mind, and often with the customers, co-created with the customers. And then you've got every chance of satisfying the needs and then adopting it. At the moment, we're being forced down certain routes that make it almost impossible at times to speak to somebody. And when you do eventually get to speak to somebody, rarely do they have the capability or the authority to deal with your problems.
And I do think there's a little bit here just about lack of ability to understand and manage a service system. Right? So what do I mean by that? Well, if the economy has changed so rapidly from a manufacturing industry to a service industry, actually understanding how a service industry works and how to do it is a skill that a lot of people don't have because it's something new. On that point, we should take a break to hear from our sponsor. We cover a whole host of topics on this podcast,
from purpose to corporate jargon,
but always focused on one thing: getting the job done well.
Easier said than done. So, if you've got unhappy customers or employees, bosses or regulators breathing down your neck,
if your backlogs are out of control and your costs are spiralling, and that big IT transformation project that you've been promised just keeps failing to deliver,
we can help. If you need to improve your performance, your team's performance, or your organisation's, get in touch at Jimmy@ajobdonewell.com.
Or James@jobdonewell.com. Right. What was
So-
I ranting about?
So we talked about state of customer experience in the UK. Why do we think it's that way, and why did it get that way? But tell me, James, who does this well?
Organisations that I think do this well. The obvious one is Amazon.
Yeah.
Right? Well, people.
Controversial.
Yeah, well, I don't think it is. I think people can bitch and moan about Amazon. They've got a bad rep for the way they treat their people. Yes, get that. However, do you know, if I want some screws, I go on Amazon. If I want a book, I go on
Yeah, that's
Amazon.
true.
Yeah, well, it saves me.
Everything,
Yeah,
absolutely everything you buy.
And what I order, they deliver it.
Next day.
Next
I still
day.
don't. I know I'm a relatively intelligent person. I still don't understand how all of these things. It doesn't matter which of the millions of things I order. They can still get it to me next day. It's unreal if you think about it.
Yeah, they very rarely don't deliver it. And when they don't deliver it, what do? No questions asked. None of this faffing about with 3 call centres like my favourite telephony supplier. Yeah, they send you a label and you can return it. Or they give you a refund. Bang, just like that. No messing about. Yeah, and so you've got this huge amount of customer trust in the organisation.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think they do a brilliant job. But the point is, I mean, it was Jeff Bezos' thing, wasn't it? Be the world's most customer-centric company. But it does show the art of the possible. So there's one. The other 2 that I think would call out, DPD, I think, well, maybe that's linked to Amazon, but the delivery company.
Yeah, it's logistics.
Right, no faffing about. We've got it. We've taken it to where we said we were going to take it. Easy to do, easy to manage. I think they do a fantastic job. And then the other one that I really would call out, actually, but it's the same sort of thing, is John Lewis. I think for me, with John Lewis, I remember vividly going in. It was about 5 o'clock on a Wednesday evening. This poor bloke, he'd obviously got his paperwork to do.
Yeah.
He's sitting there, he's got files open, God knows what, his biro, he's not having a good time. And I walked in and I stood there and I was expecting to get a good stiff ignoring. And he looked up at me and he said, "Oh, I'm sorry, sir." And I said, "Oh, sorry, you're busy?" Because he's obviously got finished before.
Yeah.
And I said, "Oh, I'm never too busy for a customer, sir." But it's just that whole attitude, yeah? And what do? You buy things from.
It's like your middle class comfy slipper.
Well,
isn't it, James?
absolutely, yeah. John Lewis and Volvos, you can't go wrong.
Well, I'd call out a couple of things. One that I mentioned earlier, which I know is a bit of a generalisation, but there's so many small businesses in the UK providing services that I think do a great job of really valuing their customers, understanding their products, understanding their customers, and delivering a great service. But one specific, which isn't a small business, but I experienced recently, a little bit different, was FC. Liverpool Football Club.
You like that, did you?
Yeah. So I was a guest at Liverpool not so long ago, and right from the point when you arrived to the point when actually we finished, and somebody ordered us a taxi and took us out to where the taxi was picking us up. They just looked after us so well. The service from everyone we came in contact with was friendly, attentive, not fussy, but really, really made us feel welcome. Everything that we needed. Nothing was too much trouble for them. I thought they were absolute top service for a football club.
Well, for football club. But it's interesting, right? So you've got this very good, very high level of service. But then you start thinking, well, that's going to cost me money, isn't it?
Yeah.
But there was one other interesting stat in that customer service.
Yeah, a third of people will pay more if they are guaranteed good service. So the customers will pay for the service. Don't get me wrong. I mean, going to corporate hospitality at Liverpool is expensive,
not cheap,
but they do it really well.
So people are therefore happy to pay for it. And so then there was that other statistic about profitability.
Oh yeah, so this was, if you looked at companies that delivered 1% above the average satisfaction for their sector, their profit margin was 11.3% on average. If you looked at companies that delivered 1% below their sector average, their profit margins were 2.7%.
Okay. Now,
massive difference.
Yeah, massive difference. Now, there is a question there, right? Are those two things, are we saying that good customer service drives profitability, or are we saying good management drives good customer service and also drives good profitability? I'm not sure I can answer that, but maybe it's a bit of a moot point.
I think, thank you to the Institute of Customer Service for the work they do. Their sample sizes are huge,
Yeah.
so the correlations are definitely there for anyone to be seen.
Yeah.
So the final question then, James.
Yeah.
Having discussed the ups and downs of customer experience that we've seen and heard about and experienced and delivered, what would you do to improve customer experience, either in a team, an organisation, or across the UK?
It's all about artificial intelligence, robots, and big data, mate.
You sound just like Rishi.
Yeah, no. So I think there are two things that I would do. The first thing is, I think you have to take a long-term perspective.
Yeah.
There are no quick wins here. You have to believe that if you continue to do the right thing for your customers, you will get a return from doing that. Yeah. So the minute you start playing short-term games is the minute you start to rob your customers.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that's the first thing. And then the second thing is, I would sack everybody who has got the job title of Chief Customer Officer or whatever the hell it might be. Because if an organisation feels it's got to have a Chief Customer Officer, what they're saying is, you over there, it's all right, we'll pay you a lot of money, but you worry about the customer because the rest of us don't give three buggers. How do you make it an objective for everybody rather than pass? Yeah, I mean, that's just pathetic.
So I agree. I think in terms of the long term, I think there is something cultural about organisations. I think they should go back more, as we've discussed, back to their purpose. What's their reason for being here? What are they trying to provide? What are they trying to do for their customers? What they're trying to do for their stakeholders, society in general, and get much better alignment in terms of systems, processes, people, objectives, where you manage your employees. Everything should align around the delivery of that purpose. And at the moment, too many organisations are getting caught in short-term financial challenges as opposed to long-term, this is what we're really here for, and going after that.
Super. Well, there you go. So there is the benefit of our wisdom.
But more interestingly,
Yeah.
we are going to, in the future, have some guests along to answer those questions, and we'll bring them from all different perspectives. So you'll get some even better insights about why they think the way they do and some of the learnings that you might have to help improve customer experience in your organisation.
Lovely. Thank you very much. I think we're done.
Did you know, James, this is...
Hang on, don't give me this. Did you know? I thought we'd come to the end. Is this a trick
Did
question?
you know, James, this is our 25th episode.
Oh, really?
It's like our silver jubilee. So we should just say a quick thank you to all our listeners. We've had some great feedback from people about the value this podcast is bringing them. We do it to help improve performance and engagement with work. Thanks to Paul from Glasgow this week, who sent in some very good feedback about how relatable some of the stuff that we talk about is. But if you've got any feedback, we've also done episodes at people's suggestion. So feedback, comments, questions, or suggestions, please feel free to share them.
Yeah, and thank you very much for listening.
Thanks, everyone.
Cheers now.
If you'd like to find out more about how James and I can help your business, then have a look at our website at jobdonewell.com.